Once upon a time, there was a little mouse who would sweep in front of her house every single morning. This little mouse, who was very clean and tidy, spent hours a day at her task. Often it would happen that, just when she thought she had finished her task, a little leaf or a stick would fall from a tree, or a bird would shed a feather as it flew by. So she would start all over again. Sometimes sweeping in front of her house could become a never ending chore. One day, the little mouse, who was really very fussy, found a golden coin while she was sweeping in front of her house. What a stroke of luck, she thought. But what can I buy with this? Some sweets, she said to herself. Oh no, that will ruin my teeth. The little mouse was thinking for a long time about what to spend the coin on until she finally exclaimed, I know! With this coin, I'll buy myself a strip of silk, and with it, I will make myself a very pretty ribbon. Then everyone will fall in love with me. And that is just what she did. The little mouse went to the town haberdasher and bought a beautiful strip of red silk. When she got home, the little mouse made a pretty ribbon out of that silk strip and put it on her hair. Gazing at herself in the mirror, she was delighted to see herself looking so pretty. The little mouse then opened her door, went outside, and continued to sweep in front of her house. Just then, Mr. Door came by. Good morning, little mouse. My, you're looking pretty, said Mr. Dog when he saw the little mouse. And then he added, would you like to marry me? After leaning on her broom and thinking for a moment, the mouse said the dog, tell me, my dear dog, if I were to marry you, what would you do at night? The dog looked at the little mouse's red ribbon, wagged its tail, and dancing on his two hind legs, replied, "Row, row, row." When she heard that doofing, the little mouse covered her ears and said to the dog, no, 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 no way, I cannot marry you. If I heard that at night, I would be scared to death. Crestfallen, Mr. Dog lowered his head and, with his tail between his legs, turned around and slunk away. The little mouse was a bit sad, but said to herself, no matter how I might try, I know that I could never manage to get used to that sound, as she watched Mr. Dog walk away. The next day, the little mouse, who was very, very fussy, went out to sweep in front of her house, just like she did every day, putting her red ribbon in her hair once again. Then she saw Mr. Horse come trotting down the lane. When he saw the mouse, the horse was struck by how pretty she was with her red ribbon. Then, after prancing for a bit, he whined and said, good morning, little mouse. Would you like to marry me? First, tell me one thing. What will you do at night? The little mouse said. Eee, eee, the horse replied. Oh, fool, I wouldn't be able to stand that sound, the mouse thought. Then she responded to Mr. Horse's proposition, saying, I'm very, very sorry, Mr. Horse, but I can't marry you. If I heard that at night, I would be frightened out of my wits. Poor Mr. Horse. Upon hearing her reply, he was truly dejected. Lowering his head, he turned around and dragged himself away. Why isn't there anyone with a sweet and melodious voice? Said the little mouse. The next day, once again broom in hand, the little mouse went out to sweep in front of her house. It was not long before the rooster from the neighboring farm came around the corner and approached her. Mr. Rooster found out his feathers, proud of his beautiful plumage. "Good morning, little mouse," said Mr. Rooster. The rooster, just as the dog and horse had done, was struck by the mouse's ribbon. Raising up one of his wings, he put up his crest and said, little mouse, would you like to marry me?" "Tell me, my dear rooster, if I marry you, what would you do at night?" So Mr. Rooster took in a deep breath and soaked. "Cuckoo! Cuckoo! Stop, stop!" shouted the little mouse. "You are most handsome, Mr. Rooster, but I do not like your voice. I'm so sorry, but I don't wish to marry you either." So the little mouse finished up sweeping and returned home, while Mr. Rooster was turned away, just as disappointed as Mr. Dog and Mr. Horse had been. The next morning, the little mouse put on her ribbon and was out and again, sweeping in front of her house with her broom. She was busy at work then, when suddenly a mouse ran by in a flash. "Hey, Mr. Mouse, where are you going in such a rush?" the little mouse asked him. "Well, good morning, little mouse. My, you're looking pretty," said Mr. Mouse. "I like to see you every morning." And with that, Mr. Mouse took off down the street just as fast as he had come. The next morning, the little mouse returned to her everyday chore. She swept and swept and swept when she saw a cat approaching. Mr. Cat, just like Mr. Dog, Mr. Horse, Mr. Rooster, Mr. Mouse, was struck by the ribbon the little mouse was wearing. Little mouse, you're so pretty today. Would you like to marry me?" said the cat in a sweet voice. "Before I reply, you must answer one question for me," said the little mouse. "If I married you, what would you do at night?" "Meow, meow." The little mouse could not believe what she was hearing. Finally, she had found a sweet and melodious voice. Without hesitation, she answered, "Yes, Mr. Cat, I will marry you." The wedding was held that very day, and the whole town was invited. Dressed in their finest, Mr. Dog, Mr. Horse, Mr. Rooster, and Mr. Mouse were all in attendance. To celebrate, they ate cakes and all kinds of sweets, and drank all of different flavors. Everyone was very happy, but the little mouse was especially so, for she had finally found someone who would not scare her, or so she thought. But that night, something bad was going to happen. When all the guests had gone, Mr. Cat grew hungry and, without thinking twice, tried to pounce on the little mouse. Before the cat could catch her, the little mouse took off running, scurrying out on reach of the cat's claws. The guests had barely left the little mouse's house when they heard cries. "Help! Help! Somebody help me!" So Mr. Mouse went and told all his friends. "The little mouse is in a trouble. Hurry, let's help her." The mouse and all other animals burst into the house to save the little mouse. They help her or to Mr. Horse's back, who ran off while Mr. Rooster, Mr. Dog, and Mr. Mouse gave the little scoundrel of a cat a good beating. Mr. Cat ended up taking such a licking that he left, never to return. That night, the little mouse fell in love with Mr. Mouse, finding him sweet, brave, generous. He saved me from Mr. Cat's claws, she thought to herself. When everything was over, Mr. Mouse went up to the little mouse and said to her, little mouse, would you like to marry me?" Throwing herself into Mr. Mouse's arms, she replied, "Yes, I shall marry you, and I don't care what you do at night."